Oh, wait, what's your favorite coffee? I don't know. Got a coffee company. It's pretty fun. I've both done a lot of different things. I mean, I've done a few real estate deals. I just finished my fourth one, second one solo. This is a fun brand that I've been building. Been wanting to do it for 5 years. Just finally launched it last year. It is super good coffee. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's really good. It's called shadylion.com. So you can see shady. I don't know if it's backwards or not. Doing
Nope.
pretty good stuff. So
Yeah.
we partnering up with a few different people. Like we partnered up with I got all kinds of stuff around it. Partnered up with this company called Pso-Rite. This is a miniature version of them. It's
Oh, I've
actually
heard of that where it goes on like your back
yeah.
or something like that. What
There you
do you
go.
like lay on it or something?
You can do all kinds of stuff. So we been partnering up with all these different brands to like distribute through our brand as well. But yeah, it's a
Oh,
fitness.
with your coffee company, you guys are partnering up with the. Oh, sweet, sweet.
Absolutely. We've got we just partnered up with this nonprofit called the Hydro Reach Project. My friend has this whole like fitness business. And you ever heard of the company On It, like Joe Rogan's
Yeah.
company?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he partnered with them to distribute one of his fitness tools. Now we're working with them to distribute some stuff, sell some things. And part of the money goes back. He invented this really cool thing that like hangs around your neck. So I mean, in the US, we have, for the most part, pretty decent access to water. A
Yeah.
lot of parts of the world, they don't. So you've got to carry buckets and all this other crazy stuff.
Sure.
He made this really cool thing that just rests around your shoulders, very safe and very helpful for people that have to carry water long distances. So we partnered up with them to sell some things and give proceeds back to them. So we're doing a lot of giving back with the coffee company, but it's also, I forget to talk about the fact that it's like there's a coffee rating for beans. And
Is it quality?
yeah. So there's all these companies that are like, this is mold free and we have really good coffee, but there's a rating system and most coffees are actually in like the 80 to 86. Even the premium stuff is like 85, 86. That
Okay.
one I was just holding there it's a 92 to 93. So it's an elite coffee bean. It's 1%, which you have to be careful about saying 1%. Yeah.
Careful.
Yeah, it's like one of the top 1% coffee beans in the company. And then I did tell my girlfriend I would plug her business because she's a mobile notary in Sacramento.
Oh, she
And
is in Sac.
yeah, so she's in Sacramento. Yeah, I've known her for 6 years. So, but it's stamped and done. So stampedandDone.com. She's been a notary forever and just finally decided she wants to do her own thing and go out. And she's like really on the money, super sharp, and definitely someone that I would want to have at a loan signing with me because she's very intense. So like,
Yeah.
does it the right way. Yeah.
That's interesting, man. For most notaries, are they trying to basically market to mortgage companies for signings of closings and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Is that where the bread and butter
I
is?
think so. I think it really depends though, right? Because you also have will and trust attorneys or
Sure. Totally.
anybody. I would say if I were a notary, I know I'm not an expert, but I would think loan signings because you also have travel fees and there's certain things woven into it. So, but I knew this from working with some title companies and real estate agents when I was an advertiser in Sacramento, is that they usually have most businesses I talked to had a preferred list. So like they have their person and then they'd have kind of their backup person and backup. So you have to like work your way into, being on the list, I guess, if that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Politics, basically.
Probably title companies too. I know from my real estate transactions, it's always like a notary's like first in line for the title company for a
Oh
local
yeah.
office. So you can get in there and they don't even have to do anything there. It's easy. They can sign like 10 things while they're,
Dude, yeah. I mean, I've always wondered how they get the ones that transactions I've seen, they just come in and knock it out for you.
when you get back though, I got some coffee questions because not only do I haven't
All
had 3
right.
cups of coffee today.
It's kind of
What,
interesting. Like, what made him want to get into that? Like, he said he's been
yeah, and I
wanting
have
to
some
do it.
questions about that too. Because my understanding of coffee is it has really low margins. So
That's what I was saying. Highly competitive. I asked him that before, and he was like, "This is more like a passion project." I thought he said something like that, but he's saying he's trying to give back a lot. I don't know if he's actually going to be making a lot of money or not, but
I mean, sometimes to offset your income from other stuff, it makes sense to have it's like running at zero all the time. Like,
for other
donating.
stuff, that
Yeah,
makes
because
sense.
then you're writing off that business all the time.
He has a lot of stuff going on. I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the reasons.
The few people that I've seen try to start coffee companies always seem to complain about because they're trying to keep the price down, but then it's like they can't get something wherever the coffee beans, which isn't here, right? Probably in like South America, it's like something happens and shipping's more and the bean costs more, and then
Yes, yes.
whoever labels it or his like
Distributes or packages it or
distributors and
whatever.
Sure. So yeah, by the way, you were 1,000% right on all of the coffee items, and that is one of the reasons I chose a. Well, that's why
Oh, you can
I was
hear
like
us?
trying to talk. I'm like,
Perfect.
why can't they? They can't hear me. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I went for a really high end coffee is because if you try to compete at the bottom where people are just, Starbucks like mass producing stuff, and there's a lot of layers to it too, because then you do have this bulletproof coffee, right? Or you have these coffees that go, oh, we're mold free. Almost every coffee is mold free. You would have to work harder to go and find coffee that has mold in it than you would. I mean, you could just pick a random bag off the shelf and it's mold free. There's all these like marketing gimmicks and baloney. I mean, there's a lot of coffee companies I admire, like Black Rifle Coffee. They do a really good job. Their marketing is great, like their purpose is great. They have really good price points. They do this like $30 subscription thing, but sometimes those beans that they're pumping out, like they'll throw blends, right? They're operating off of stuff and yeah, I actually chose it knowing it's like one of the most competitive industries on the planet. Thinking I'd have fun with it. It's been a ton of fun. Got a good customer base.
Or
Yeah. Rolling out a bunch of new roasts, but also just doing because I'm really active in like mixed martial arts and have met a lot of cool people doing my podcast as well with that. And so it's kind of fun just building it and being able to do whatever the heck makes sense, like teaming up with Pso-Rite, serve their product on our website, or partnering up with nonprofit and being like, hey, let's collaborate and make some stuff and create these win-win situations. So it's really the super fun part of it. And then, I mean, we're going to launch this Hawaiian roast, this Kona blend. Not even blend, it's Kona, like just straight Kona beans. It's probably going to be like $65 a bag, maybe more. It might be like $70. It'll price out, but it'll still sell. And there's a bunch of people that would rather $15 per bag, and that's cool too. Now we have some Brazilian roast for that. So we're trying to meet people where they're at, but the whole purpose is actually wanting people to know what good coffee tastes like. Because the number one thing, like I dropped the price just to flood because our email list started growing a bunch. And I dropped the price for a little bit just to pump out sales, just to be like, look, this shit is normally $31 a bag. Like, I want to see a bunch of people subscribe and try this. So operated below margin, was actually losing money, was shipping and all this stuff just to pump it out. And the reviews that people were talking about, I mean, every single review is, I've never had coffee like this. This is the first time I've ever had coffee without cream in it. Why is it so smooth? I didn't know coffee naturally could be this sweet. So it's all this really cool stuff, super fun, super competitive, and also very challenging and frustrating sometimes.
at least you're opening up people's eyes to like what actual good coffee should taste like.
Like how you fulfill the product, like doing everything, or is it like a third party company and like your branding and stuff? And then also, can you explain kind of your distribution method? It sounds like you just said newsletter, so maybe you doing it mostly through newsletter, then outreach to other newsletters to market, or are you doing things like trying to bring in organic traffic?
It's been 100% just organic for now. There's a lot to do because I also heard Kevin earlier say Derek has a lot of stuff going on or something, right? So it's like one of the things is fun, but it's not number one on my list. So it kind of moves. I think most things in life move at the pace and progress of the energy that we give them. So it's moving, it's growing, it's really cool. I'm very fortunate to have a good team. And now my girlfriend, she's like really good with accounting and numbers and all the organ stuff that I'm not.
Perfect.
She can't.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Like, here, babe.
we're whipping us
Take
all
it.
into shape. And I was like, this is exactly what I needed. But going back, what was the first part that we were talking about?
How do you distribute? Like, how do I order your coffee?
Yeah,
How
I
does that
mean,
process
and that
look
we actually
like?
have people that want to carry it in their stores. Like we're working on a deal with a hotel, things like that. Most hotels, for example, they're not used to like a very high end bean. So we first showed them the prices for the quantity they wanted. They're like, holy smokes, that's 7 times as much as we're paying. We're like, okay, we have to work with a different bean then. But we're getting the bean juice, the magical beans, Jack the Beanstalk from really a friend that I've known since 2017, 2018. So I had been wanting to do this for a while. I was buying coffee from him and his company. They're called Guadalupe Roastery, very faith-based, Catholic-based company. A lot of virtue, just very wholesome, good people. He went on this mission. I don't know, just got to talk to him for a little bit. I used to do a lot more business consulting and go in and help smaller companies grow and set up the right systems and really master their sales and just processes. And so we made a connection through that and then just stayed friends. And I actually almost launched it. I was doing like coffee tastings at my friends' cafes and stuff like that here in San Diego. Was really close to launching it and just pulled back because I made all these other changes in life. But we get the beans from him. Then we also work with his roastery, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of different there's one of the challenges that coffee organizations have, unless you're like a Starbucks, but is consistency, right? You have people that expect a certain consistency. That's also another reason that cheaper beans are more, I guess, more other than price, but they're more common because you know that you're always going to be able to get this one type of coffee. You get the Folgers bean, you get the Starbucks. Yeah, they just
the
fry
safe
the heck
bet.
out of the beans
Yeah.
and it all tastes mass produced. So yeah, so I go through him for all the purchasing. Like he's going to buy what they call containers. He kind of talks to us if we want to do new stuff and do new things. He's like a bean broker, I guess you could say, like a coffee broker. Send it to the roastery. We only roast things as people order it. So like a lot of stuff sits on shelves for a while. And so peak freshness for coffee is like 7-ish days after it's roasted. So there's this thing called the degassing process and packaging process. So we roast, put it through the ringer essentially, and then really within about 24 hours it is shipping coming to you. So people will get the packages and they'll smell it like through the box, through the bag.
Just that
Dude, they're like,
aroma,
why is
just
this smell so good? It's like because it was roasted 3 days ago. So
uh,
That's
so
awesome.
like throwing beans in the freezer.
it's actually all, especially if you have a good package. There's little things called like valves on coffee bags. So all this like beans in the freezer and bean storage containers and all this stuff. If you're getting it in a good bag, you don't need that because it has the right. Yeah, a good
Oh,
bag will just seal it and keep it fresh.
That's awesome.
yeah, your bag seems pretty legit too. It's got was that like the little thing or knob or something on the front? Is there
That's
like a
the
vent
valve.
or something on it? Is that what you're talking about? The
Ours
valve?
does not
Yeah,
have that. You
okay.
don't really need it with this bag though, because it's like double sealed and because it's roasted super fresh. There are certain things like even the ones that like roll over, like those are still fine for the most part, depending on how old the bean is. But when you're saying the cool bag, by the way, I want to plug
No.
Ryan, right? He made, he
Yes.
designed it.
Yeah,
Dude is
baby.
super good. He actually put his logo.
Extremely talented, man.
Yeah, there we go. He snuck his logo in there on the bottom of the bag. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's
Is
his
it that
logo?
way?
I love it.
There we go.
He's a very
I think you had
no,
it.
There
you
you go.
had it right.
So yeah, he really crushed it with this bag design. We had a little trending
Great.
thing for. I'm like, oh, we should try to roll this. Maybe we should still push it because when things go viral, it's nice. But people were like hashtag Wakanda coffee. I was, yeah, I
Nice.
was like, all right.
Forever.
I had this one video go viral. I was like 1.6 million views or something, and it was 2 lions humping. And I edited. I just threw this like slow music over it, and it's I found a love. It's like rolling up, and then they're done. In 3 seconds, they're done. And I put an emoji over the humping part, like a happy emoji or something. It's crazy what happens on the internet. It's 1.6 million views on
It's
Facebook.
but the Wakanda is perfect because what you like the stuff that you sent me of like your little short
Mhm.
little commercials and stuff. There's a hubbed out black dude with his shirt off, like
That's
it's just like waking up, like lifting. I'm like, damn.
I think that's what I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like at first, I didn't even think about that. Right. So part of the company with one of my sisters. She's not really part of the company anymore. It turned out I'm not into the grind of the coffee company, but born in Ethiopia, which is another reason we went to Ethiopia, giving back a lot of stuff. And so part of the original marketing was like black owned, right? That was part of it. And then my friend Donnie is this giant, legit bodybuilder, like black dude, and he is really good with content and commercials. So we put that commercial together, and I realized I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, whoa, it totally just looks, yeah. And I think that's exactly where the iconic. You got big buff Donnie on there, you got black owned, you got Ethiopian copy, you got
Yeah,
among other people.
that looks it all kind
Yeah,
of
it was.
ties in
You gotta
perfectly.
watch out for the cultural.
You can tell he's very comfortable.
Oh, that guy is awesome. I mean, I was surprised how that. I mean, that like, he did 3 different videos for us, and the work that goes into it. I mean, it was like hours of filming, so it was pretty cool.
just for a
Oh,
minute or two.
yeah.
Yeah, this isn't crazy. Yeah, I don't even know how you come up with the time and money to do all this stuff that you plus you have real estate. Would you say out of state? Was it Texas
A
is where
couple of
you've
properties
been
out there.
having?
Yeah.
That's awesome. What was it oh, as far as the real estate, because Kevin knows you personally, this is the first time we've ever met. So what's your investing journey like? Is it stopping? Are you more business minded focused? Because for example, that's me in my life. I've done real estate investing and I've been moving away from that and going into business, which kind of seems like a natural evolution for a lot of people. And then I guess after you go into that, like if you have any viewpoints on how real estate market is
I
today,
love
Especially in
yeah. I
San
mean, I
Diego.
I love talking about real estate right now because it's pretty I mean, in any market, right? There's always people that will go off the headlines, and this is for anything. This is not just for real estate, and then operate out of like panic and fear. Meanwhile, I
yeah,
just talked to an agent who's selling 3 properties, all really good properties for really good deals in Texas. And if you negotiate, you guys probably know a lot more about this than I do, but you can get sellers credits, right? So if you have motivated sellers, which you have in a tough market because people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be stuck with this property. You can find something that's super motivated. You max out your
Yeah.
seller credits, buy down the interest rate, find a lender that also wants to do deals, right? A motivated lender that's going to work with you a little bit. They can help buy down the rate. Now you're looking at what if you do it right, you're going to get your interest rate down below 5% maybe if you max all that out. Yeah, not
Yeah.
to mention there's a bunch of FHA changes it looks like because they've been I think it was it Fannie Mae or whatever. They're one of the you guys again probably know more about this, but they've been kind of pushing investors out of multifamily properties the way they've been pricing it out. So it
Yeah.
looks like the second half of the year, they're going to make some changes to motivate more investors to come in and own duplexes, triplexes. I think it's the 2 to 8 or whatever it is. So yeah, so there are good deals out there, but you have to work to find them. You have to be optimistic. You got to find the right people and the right thing for you.
yeah, From what I have the markets I like operating in South Carolina, in Charleston, and Orangeburg, and Greenville, and then here in Sacramento. And there's always deals to be had. I do think, which is rare, because usually I'm always like people are just being panicky for no reason and stuff. That in b- most likely, I think I just heard Grant Cardone say this, and I don't. He's way too over for me, overboard always, but he might be right as far as investors are probably going to start stepping in and keep the real estate market floating because they know how to, like you said, negotiate these deals and kind of be picking up properties. 'Cause otherwise, we're going to look at the one of the few times where we might actually see prices start to stagnate or fall because but right now buyers are just don't they think that 6% is too high, so they're like, where the heck,
Yeah.
what's going on, man? And it just depends on the price you pay. Like I know, and Kevin first, I mean, he was like, I've never seen because I like to do seller financing deals with people. So, and he's like, what the hell does this guy do? Because I bought the house I live in, my personal house with seller. And I'm like, yeah, you just tell the people, hey, do you own this thing? Okay, why don't you just lend the money to me then? He's like, what the heck? And so, same
I know,
thing in
it's
some people
crazy.
right now.
I mean,
Just
I've
do that.
heard of it.
Well,
Obviously,
get a
I've
bank.
seen it. I've
Go.
put in offers, but I've never actually seen one go
Yeah,
like
it's
you're just
that
coming in here
simple.
like this is my bread and butter, man. That's what I do. I'm like, man, tell me
I
more.
mean, if you buy a portfolio, depending on people, how much money you got, but someone came to you right now and was like, "Do you want to buy like 40 single family homes for who knows somewhere where it's expensive, so maybe for $10 million, and you only need to get 200 grand down?" I'm sure you'd go ask every person you know right now, "Someone give me 200 grand right now because I'm going to do this with 0% interest and buy this thing from this person." So, and that's what I think is coming as far as real estate. Like the investors probably are going to start picking up. They're going to swoop on these multifamily deals that go under because the banks have no liquidity. They're all per typical 2008, which is when I graduated. So I know I'm a little bit younger guys, but and they come into the market, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do stuff, and all the banks go bankrupt. And I'm like, what the hell is happening, man? And per typical, their books are all manipulated, and they have a really crappy liquidity right now. So it's probably going to trickle into these real estate deals that are on these balloon payments and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so it's going to be multifamily probably. Derek was saying that I think people are going to start picking up real quick and house hacking. I know house hacking is popular with millennials and Zoomers. YouTubers,
Totally.
buy one
Absolutely.
side and rent the other. So it's fun. I wish I would have done that. I wish I had a brain cell when I graduated high school. But
You don't even have to live there very long. You can live there 6 months.
you could do it
Again, right?
every
Live there
year,
6
maybe,
months,
maybe
your
less.
renters do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think of these apps now? Grant Cardone actually has his own like Cardone Capital. It's a little bit different, but there's one called Fundrise, for example, right? There are these investment tools now because of technology where you can pool people's money together. So instead of even someone just wants to get in the door with real estate, I mean, they can plug into something like that, pay a very minimal fee. Although, even if the fee, I don't know what the fees are, but let's say they're 1%. If you compound that over 20 years, you're going to lose a crap ton of money, but it's still better than not doing something. What do you guys think of tools like that?
So, Kevin, I don't know if you want to go first, but that's my bread and that's actually my
Yeah.
butter right there
Yeah.
for
For
what I
sure. Go
moved to.
for it.
So, the long story short is after doing enough buying and holding and for a couple of years I was doing wholesaling, I got a little bit burnt out of that kind of real estate. Like I found out that I'm more of like a shiny object person, so I wanted to step back and be more passive with it. And so I like 6 months ago, I founded moneymainstreet.com for these kinds of tools for people I don't want to go buy real estate. I want to work my job that I like as a teacher and know how do I invest in simple things with technology and stuff like that. Or I want to be a first responder and I want to be able to like invest still, but I don't have time. So as far as so I have done my best to review all these types of products, including Fundrise and Cardone Capital, his fund, and there's Ground Floor, which it lets you invest in real estate debt. So that's seems similar, but it's a whole separate thing, right? It's a whole separate sector of the economy, and they're all pretty awesome. When I tell people when they're like all about real estate though, is like you're missing all the tax benefits. So you're really helping other investors who know what they're doing to make lots of money and you're making a small piece of what they're making. And I think from when I just talked to Fundrise actually 2 weeks ago because I have an affiliate program with them too. And they, for their last 2 years, they've been having a little bit over 10% returns on average for their customers. So that's basically the stock market. So I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
amazing. And Ground Floor has
And you
12%.
can't even, one of the things I was
So
thinking with Fundrise, it would be cool if you were thinking if people wanted to save up to buy property. This is one of my original thoughts. It's good to stash things in money like that, right? But then you want to take it out. There's a little bit of a penalty. And when I asked Fundrise is, can you pull money out of it and roll it into a 1031 exchange?
And
You
31
can't.
type of thing. Yes. I don't
No.
know why not. You can't?
Yeah.
Why?
no, because
it-
you're a limited. Okay, so this goes to funds. One day, if my kids let me, could kill him first. I would love to start a fund because that seems so like Hollywood, right? I have a fund, and I don't know if it'd be in real estate. She might just be in like digital business, but like private equity fund. And my sister being a lawyer is also, I guess, helps you. So limited partners. Have nothing. You're just a slave. If you read
Basically.
the agreements, you're just offering money to someone smarter so to explain it to a kid, and then you make a return off of their knowledge, basically, and that's it. The general partners, who sometimes are just literally one or two people, not only do they control where your money goes and stuff like that, but they are the ones that can roll sometimes a 1031 in the company into another real estate business, and they take distributions as payments to themselves, or they take an interest or a percent interest like of the year. So let's say you're, as far as the fund goes, it's at the end of the year, uh, fund like Cardone Capital usually says you're going to get a guaranteed amount, which I don't quite think they usually, but I don't know how they get that. But so if it's 8%, they take everything above that if that happens. So that's how they do that. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So a typical like real estate fund, I do know someone that does have a real estate fund. And so that's even more straightforward. It's like they take a percentage first. It's like 1 to 3%, right? And then up to a percent, which is usually like 10%, you take you as the limited partners, and it'll get split among that amount. And then above that, it goes back to a 50-50 split up to a certain amount. And then after 50% gains for a year, then the fund manager takes everything. That's how. So a lot of the richest people in the world, they run funds. That's what they do. They take a percentage of everybody else's money.
Just sit back and do nothing. Just so.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's hard because I've never done it, but I'm imagining
right.
they do pull strings and make deals and do things. As far as what I recently, right when COVID started, we all started getting on the internet, all people, right? We're like, "Oh, we're gonna do things." So I did try to figure out a way to help people that already have real estate and all this passive income. So it's like, I felt like I was not very helpful for someone that's, "I don't have any money. What am I supposed to do?" So I have it up on my site too, as an investing strategy. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, everybody, because this is YouTube.
You're
I
good.
did use M1 Finance. They're a broker that's like focused for like long term investing. Like that's where definitely their bread and butter. What they for millennials, because they have a cool little pie thing, and you can buy pies, and it automatically buys with fractional shares. Blah blah blah. But they do offer a borrow feature against your either your spend account, which is like a bank account, or your investment portfolio. I believe you have to have $5,000 in there to start borrowing 35%. So similar to what Derek said, this
Yeah.
is my best guess for helping people out there on the internet that are in hard situations growing. If you put into super safe ETFs or high dividend paying ETFs, and you set in there just as like a giant savings account, which I tried for 2 years, and then borrow against it, and I was able to buy a property with it, so it worked. High income individuals maybe can do that, but I still have these tools. I guess to summarize, we've come to the conclusion, as far as me trying to give advice to people, that you do need to find a way to increase your income and or do something creative, make deals and creative financing. Otherwise, you got to get that down payment and buy out a state or something to kind of do.
There's a really good book. You guys ever read The Richest Man in Babylon? I heard of that.
Oh, I love it. I read that to my I read it to my 18-month-old, so I don't know if he actually
Maybe
understands it,
he'll
but
pick something up in his sleep or
That's, I
something.
mean, you talk about increasing income.
Uh,
That's super important. The number one thing too is even if you're 16 right now working at a coffee shop, if you practice the principles in that book, it might take a little bit longer, but you're 16 years old, so you got plenty of time, hopefully. By the time you're
you
20,
would hope.
22, you're in the game. You just, especially if you don't have a lot of bills and stuff. That's the other thing is I was with the price of eggs went up recently, right? And I couldn't believe how many conversations I had with people about the price of eggs. Oh, because I'm like eating 7 eggs for breakfast. They're like, that's so expensive. And I was like, compared to what? They're like, well, you could get a whole meal at such and such for whatever, right? And I'm like, I'd rather have, I mean, we really broke it down. It was like 60 cents an egg at its peak, right? Peak prices. And they're comparing it to I don't even know how much a Happy Meal or Big Mac meal or whatever. I honestly,
Because they're like,
see, that's what I'm saying. And they're like, oh, when we did the math, and I'm like, how
yeah,
many people are you feeding? 3 people? Okay, you're gonna spend $30 going out, or you're gonna spend $15. Everybody's way healthier and happier. And so it's just really interesting the thinking
having-
when you mentioned earlier, grow up poor or whatever. It took me a long time to rewire some of those habits and thoughts about money.
you know what? You also, I don't know if you remember, you also told me about, was it Common Path to Wealth?
Oh, Simple Path to Wealth. Yeah. No, that's a
Simple,
good
I'm
that's a
sorry,
good
Simple, I
that's a
apologize.
good
Yeah, I'm into the audiobooks, but yeah, I listened to it. It's really good.
I definitely recommend for listening to just Babylon, because it's not as dry of a read, since they kind of make it more like it's a story, right? That you're reading, instead of, so for example, my favorite book is Richer, Wiser, Happier. But if I gave that to a random person, they'd be like, "Why are we talking about stocks and what is going on?" But yeah, The Richest Man in Babylon breaks it down like as child level of like how
Layman's
basically
terms.
how rich people are rich actually is really what it's really telling you, not like what you should do, but why people with a lot of money or have a lot of money.
It's up here.
So
You actually made me think. I have this big whiteboard up here, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 books on there that I'm planning to write, and I'm like editing the first one right now. But I forgot to put on my list. I want to rewrite The Richest Man in Babylon and do something like The Richest Man in California, or just something like more modern, cool to
There you
up a
go.
little bit. But
Yeah.
because of what you said, it's entertainment and it's a story, so it's not dry. So yeah, thank you for that. You reminded me.
that'd be awesome. Would you use
Yeah, yeah.
like a fictional character, or would you maybe like research to find kind of a similar like high profile person?
It might
and
be
have
like a
kind of
Grant
follow?
Cardone or something, right? Because if you think about that book, it's, I don't know if the characters are real, but you do want the setting to be real. It has to be something that's relatable to a lot of people because of the internet. California is what, if you leave the US, like a lot of people, you go to South America or Europe or whatever, there's this, the Beach Boys are still prominent. So yeah.
Wow, really? I'm sheltered, I guess. I don't get out very much unless
It's a
there is.
sheltered little a rich American. You're
I
top 0.%, what 0.1% of the world. No big deal.
no, I'm not like I'm special or anything.
Born in America.
Derek went to how long were you at for?
Pretty close to a year, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've always been like trying to live my life vicariously through Derek. This guy's been just
There's a
living
lot,
it up.
lot behind the scenes.
You're doing a lot of fun stuff, man.
I mean, I've always thought, speaking of smart moves, but it's hard with family, but like living in a different country is always a smart move too for a lot of people if you can do it because you get a lot of tax benefits.
There's this
So,
guy, this influencer on Instagram named Richard Garcia. And I think his account is like Richard Garcia Official, but he 100% teaches people how to build real estate. And then, I mean, I thought of this because he takes his whole family and they live in like Colombia, they live wherever. And he used to work at like Tesla or something like that. But I often think, because I don't have kids or anything, and I work with so many people that have these limits that they put on what's possible. And so I wonder if I had kids, would I be able to still do these things? Would I make sacrifices, or would I go, oh, I have kids, so I shouldn't do this? I probably this. Yeah. So I know Kevin has kids. Kevin's got one kid, one,
You know, one.
and
I'm going on
Conrad-
number two. I'm going on number two right
he's
now.
got 2 on the way. So yeah.
I practice like pretty strongly now for the last 3 or 4 years. Every morning when I wake up, I'll not journal, but I do my a little bit of reading and stoicism. And so I try to make sure like the core things I take from it to help me, at least personally, is kind of the whole like, well, there's starving children in Africa, right? So that, which is a common thing said here, is a saying for not eating your food. But the way I like to take that is, am I just like complaining about a situation, right? That I think's holding me back, but in actuality, it's as a normal person, it's my job to just deal with it my own way or whatnot. And so as far as kids, I mean, Kevin has an older kid than I do, so maybe he'll have even a different perspective now. It's totally derailed me actually and made me less productive, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain
1000%.
that's actually the fault of having the kid. So as I look at other people that hopefully are truthful and like other guru type people, and there's definitely like highly successful people that have multiple kids, some of them with only just one parent too, right? And you're like, so they're doing their systems and how they run their system is just probably superior to what I'm doing, or they're hiring the right people and I'm trying to do things I shouldn't be doing myself, kind of a thing. And then even a higher level than that, there's also people that are highly successful that say that if they did have kids, they wouldn't be able to do it. So it does seem like it's a common mindset though, still for people. People make
It's a limiting mindset for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a
Yeah.
limiting mindset that like I think everybody has. And I guess at the end of the day, I try not to be like, well, I'm less successful because I have my kid banging on the computer when here or whatever and stuff. That's really kind of on me to figure out how I run it compared to Derek or you, right?
one of the things
trying
I've
to run a
noticed is I've been
business.
pretty fortunate to get to work with a bunch of people that have strong Catholic foundations or Christian, or have a lot of religious, I think, foundations for how they run their life. And I mean, I know folks that have 8 kids, 6 kids, right? 5 kids, and yet they don't seem to slow down. And so when you said systems, it made me think of that. It's like sometimes too, when you have a lot of responsibility, but when you're highly motivated, you just figure out how to be more efficient, right? Your time becomes more valuable because some of these folks, I know when you're talking to them, you can feel like they have things to do. So they want for the kids, they need to go pick Kenny up from Keyball or whatever. By the way, huge fan of journaling. You ever seen this one, the 5-minute journal?
Nice.
So awesome.
I
Then
love
I'm gonna send you both if you want it. But I've been working on the like iterations of this journal. I'm gonna not show the whole thing, but I've tried all these performance planners and all these different things, and so I believe in there being kind of tied into this too of having family and relationships. There's these different areas of life. I think even like Tony Robbins calls it the wheel of life, when you could figure out how balanced your wheel is. So I've made some iterations, work on this for a little bit. Finally, this morning, I think it hit me like exactly how I want the wording to be or what I want it to look like, but to produce a journal that has some stoic properties to it and some gratitude and some other things. It's kind of like the 5 minute journal, but a spin-off of it that's probably going to take 8 minutes.
I like it. That's dope.
You sneak it in with your coffee, maybe that could be cool, huh?
I know, right?
It's definitely going to
That
go
would be kind of cool.
website. Yeah.
Or like on the back of the bag or something. I don't know. I don't have enough.
If you guys want out, I'll send you one of the prototypes.
I got to say about you, Derek, though, is even though you aren't married with kids yet, you are still like a family man. You can just tell by like this person that you are. Like I've known you as grown up and stuff, high school and stuff, but you are just like the way that I see it is like you just are a very hardworking guy. You know what you want. You do, in my perspective, like what it's gonna take. Like the type of person that father, husband you're gonna be. You're just not there yet. But as soon as you are, it's gonna be like balls out. You know what I mean? I could just see it. Like you're just that type of guy, and I don't think that's gonna ever hold you back for the success that you see yourself having because you are very driven, you know what you want, so I don't think
Can we clip this out and send it to my girlfriend? That would be perfect.
Yeah, no problem.
And I try to use examples too, because like one of my sisters has 6 kids. And so, I mean, I've never like babysat for a month at a time, right? But I have had periods of time where I've had them around or went and visited, but also just took ownership of them for a day or two, or even one of my nephews for like a week or whatever, these kind of things. And it was interesting because I did find I'm like, okay, just because I'm hanging out with my niece on this Wednesday doesn't mean I can shut down my business for a day. And it was like, how do I do both these things? How do I run? I had 2 interviews to run to hire some new people. I had a handful of managers I needed to connect with to help them with their teams and like these individual calls. And my niece had a blast that day because I couldn't do this all the time, but I remember taking her to the mall and we just walked around the mall and then I don't remember what she bought, but I remember after what felt like a 3 or 4 hour sprint through the mall and me being on the phone nonstop and like talking to her and she's having fun. I'm interacting with the people, buying stuff. We sit down and got some like ice cream or whatever. And I look over and she's happy as shit. I mean, she's just, this is so much fun. And again, you can't go on shopping sprees every day, but I was like, oh, there's gotta be other ways. But essentially what you're saying is like, I got all the interviews done, talked to all my people, got whatever else needed to be done. And it was like lunchtime. But it was just focused. And a lot of times we get stuck in I have to do this or this. But I love just saying, how do I do this and this? Right. And sometimes you just have to stretch.
Yes.
Good point, man. We all are self-limiting, no matter like the way we think, all that kind of stuff. And I just try to catch myself.
Derek, would you recommend because so I know I think it's on the same as me too, is my whole life, literally maybe my whole life until I have to, I've always been bad at, like you were saying, like kind of setting aside time to move things around, but also in that same kind of systems building when you're running a business, or even just a normal everyday life. When you do stuff that you shouldn't be doing, like in the wrong order, or you should be having someone else do it for you. Because I know, I've told Kevin so many times how, like, I'll be like doing something, I'm like, man, that took me 5 hours. It's like, why did I hire someone to do that when my time is worth like 3 times the amount? Why did I not trust someone?
Yeah, how do you figure that out, Derek? And especially that you have 12 hats that it seems like you wear. I mean, Conrad too. He's got does a lot of things, but
what my
how do you
mentors taught
figure it
me
out?
is really just focus on one thing. Pick one thing that's your number one thing that no matter what happens throughout the day, you got that one thing done. And so that's the first thing I do every day. When I was selling advertising, it was making cold calls, the thing that everybody hates doing. It didn't matter. I don't care if my house was on fire at 8:30 in the morning. I was sitting down, making calls from 8:30 to 9:30, scheduling new appointments. And that way, it literally didn't matter what happened the rest of the day. I was investing in my future, right? I had opportunities to go to. There's a really good book that I think plugs on that too, called The One Thing. And I even, well, the Keller Williams guy, the actually real estate dude, right? So I was talking to my girlfriend a little bit about this because I noticed like on Saturday I was editing a book and I put my phone on Do Not Disturb a lot as well. There's only one person that gets through my Do Not Disturb. It's the girlfriend. I might have to revoke her access because
she's taking advantage of this.
I'm like editing a book and then I see something and I'm like, oh, I should probably address that, right? I pick it up and I thought it was something that it wasn't. And then for me, because I am very focused, and this kind of ties into this other book I'm reading right now called Peak Mind. And it's talking about attention, which is really interesting. It's really changing my thoughts on that. But I find that knowing what you're supposed to be doing is really, really good. And then you just put on your blinders essentially. But as a kid, going back to the stories we tell ourselves, I know that I was getting in trouble even when we very first started. I don't know if you're recording or not, but we're talking about I didn't go a lot of school growing up. I literally got kicked off a school bus when I was like, I don't know, 7 years old or 6 years old or something, because the school bus goes to the railroad. They open the door and everybody's supposed to be quiet for 30 seconds, right? Like you only have to be quiet for 30 seconds, a minute. I don't know. I couldn't shut up for the 30 seconds. And so I would always get in trouble just talking, and my attention was here and there. They're like, you have ADD, ADHD, send me to the doctor. They're like, don't eat red food dye and calm down and shit. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But what I learned is like discipline and some other things, like having a strong sense of what you're supposed to be doing. This book, Peak Mind, is talking about ADHD right now. And it's actually saying the real problem with people that have that is they just don't know what to focus on. Or you get hyper focused on something, but it's the wrong thing. And I think this is just really common because our attention is something that has helped us for a long time. Watch out for the tiger, watch out for the bear. Should I eat this berry? Is that one going to poison me? And now we have so much going on in our lives. You just have to pick one thing and make that your one thing, I think, each day. Everything else will work out.
So hard though, easier said than done, because Connor's talking shiny objects and like squirrel every 2 seconds. And it's so hard because everything takes discipline and practice.
You just got lists. Like literally, it was my.
There you
I mean,
go.
I have all the technology in the world, but nothing beats me getting out a yellow pad and going, what's the most important thing? And then crossing it off and starting a new one every day, right?
Yeah, I do this, and then I also do to-do list app,
Yeah.
just to double check that I'm writing down the same thing. Especially if I'm out doing something, right? But not to derail your thing too much, Kevin, but it's interesting about the ADHD thing, because I don't know if that's still a big thing with kids. I don't know because the kids are old enough yet, but I know when I was growing up, and it's interesting because my father has ADHD, but like quite bad. He's on the spectrum where it still affects him. He's 65 right now, and he's still it's made his financial intelligence pretty poor, and his career development. He became a general contractor after being a truck driver, and is like all over the place. What's that?
Taking any meds? Like
So he less and less as he gets older, because the older you get, the more on you get, especially with those kinds of. I don't know what they're calling it now. They have the woke word like
neurodivergence
or whatever, right? Anything. What's
he's
neurodivergent, and so. Well, he also has a minor bipolar too, so that's even worse when he's countered with that, right? Because he's mood fluctuations, him being distracted. So where I'm trying to tie it down to though so he's very against getting me tested, because some of the medications have really bad like side effects. And somewhat similar to Derek, I was just like hooligan. I wasn't too bad, but I was just like not doing any work or anything at all. But then, and I've done my best now. Maybe this will help you, Kevin, because I didn't. When I was a teenager, I think it was probably a podcast or something, but someone was talking about ADHD, and it was a neuropsychologist, I think, and he was like, actually, if someone really does have ADHD, it's a long, thorough test, they actually like they're not just hyper. You should be able to harness that on the opposite spectrum, because and this is totally true with me. I am extremely, extremely obsessive compulsive when it comes to things, and like to where I just won't sleep if I'm in the middle of something, right? Like for more than a day. And I think that kind of, when you have shiny object syndrome, which I still have that feeling, right? I think about what I just said though, like verbally, that I can focus. I know that I can focus on something that's important. It's the one thing that I need to focus on.
And this is where I actually didn't finish earlier. So this ties perfectly into it though. You talked about moods, right? And so what this book is talking about, and I really believe a lot of high performers that I know have some version of this. But so I'm editing this book.
yeah.
Girlfriend pings me it's totally it's different than what my expectations were, right? So I went focusing on book to focusing on what I thought the conversation was gonna be. I actually called her and I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" And then blindsided was something else. And for me, that's been one of my challenges a lot is that's when my mood shifts, is when I shift my focus. Maybe this happens to a lot of people. The book says it does, but it's more prevalent in people with ADD, ADHD, is that you finally figure out to focus and then something interrupts your attention is trying to make progress on something and your mood can go blah. Luckily, a lot of practice and awareness and things like that, but it has to do with an internal emotional thing tied to like your attention portion of your brain. So there you go.
Plus trying to get back to where the concentration that
Negative
you were
log.
at too. It's like you're fucking pissed off or trying to
Yeah.
focus on that, and then it's just yeah,
So you
totally.
have to I
I
think you
get
have to
I get it.
guard your space or your time when you have tasks that require focus, which most tasks do. You would think you would want to focus on them, but I mean, we live in a world now where people are on Zoom scrolling on Instagram during business meetings.
Oh, big
Love
time.
does to segue into this is something I ask people like I just meet generally like on the street too. They're talking to me. Some people they get offended. What do you think about with talking about how you were as a I was sounds like I was like a little bit better of a student, but was not a high performer because I didn't try to learn anything. So I don't know if you felt like that, but is it better to jump into sales right out of high school? Jump into a career where you're dealing with people or a business underneath another person that's running a business? Or do you still think there's a real strong argument for like traditional education, making sure you do well in school, so you do well in college, so you can be a
I think it
finance
depends on what you want to
manager or
do, right?
something?
If you want to go be a heart surgeon, you should probably go to school. Like YouTube University is not where you become a heart surgeon. But if you don't know what you want to
But
do, and I mean, I see so many kids that are generally in our age bracket that did what their parents want them to do, and they're alcoholics, they're unhappy, they have tons of student loan debt, and it's well, my mom said that I should into accounting because they were accountants and I had to go to Berkeley because whatever. And it's, man, that kind of sucks. I mean, I think a lot of things that we have in life that we either think is like adversity or not good, or that we think is a gift also has the opposite. Like I used to tell myself the story of, oh, I didn't really go to fifth, sixth, or seventh grade. So I have to pay someone to do my algebra homework in college because I have no idea what's going on. Right? I literally did that to get through algebra in college. But I
yeah,
also know
totally.
that I didn't get really indoctrined. That's kind of a strong word, but I didn't get this wiring set that said I had to follow a traditional path. I ended up going to college because I was like, I think this is what normal people do, right? And found out didn't really like it. Finished it anyways because I'd never completed a long-term project. So I was like, I'm just gonna prove to myself I can stick to something for 4 or 5 years. But what that opened me up for afterwards was I had a little bit of pressure because a lot of people in college were jumping into their career path. And I was like, I was actually talking, do you know Adam Kahn? Yeah. Okay. So he has a little brother named Alex Kahn too. You might know
Yeah.
him, Conrad. I think he's more in your I was at
Yes.
Oh
his
yeah.
Yes.
Oh
house
nice.
watching, I think we were
Small
watching the
world, man.
World Cup or Super Bowl. I don't know, one of those things, big sport event. And I was talking to his mom, like in the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving to Brazil, but I'm also thinking about getting a job and jumping into the career thing. And I should just start building money and that kind of stuff and buying a house. And she was like, well, it sounds like you really want to go to Brazil. And I was like, yeah. And she just said, if not now, then when? Right. And I'm like, ooh, I'm getting like the tingles thinking about it. And I imagined the future and I was like, holy shit, like she's right. If I jump into this career and do all this stuff, like I might not take some of these risks. Knowing me now, I still would. At some point, I'd be like, we're all going. Come on, you guys. But it's so I mean, to answer your question, I think people should spend time trying to figure themselves out. One of my nephews during the pandemic, like they were just really struggling with school. I think a lot of kids were struggling with school. And my sister tells me, do you want to talk to them about school and stuff? And I get on the FaceTime and I'm like, hey, you guys, school's not important. My sister was like, this is not, yeah, this is not the like I was expecting. Yeah, her
She's like,
face
what
is
the
like, what
fuck?
the? And I'm like, well, here's the deal, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of told them the same thing. If you want to be a heart surgeon or whatever, like you need to get A's because you need to go to a good school. If that's not your jam, still pass your classes. Don't fail stuff, right? Put in enough effort, whatever that is for you, to pass your classes, make it through high school. But all that time that other kids are spending studying, getting an A in their calculus class, find something you enjoy and put your energy into that. So fast forward 2.5 years now, I guess. One of my nephews has done some really cool shit with art. He was like painting all these
Yeah.
rocks and selling them, making hundreds of dollars on Facebook Marketplace. Then he upgraded. I've got these really cool Air Force Ones that he designed for me. So he basically I
That's
want a gaming
sick.
chair, and then creates some stuff and sells it. Like, kid is super talented. So he figured out, we talked about money, where it's kind of like Richest Man in Babylon stuff. Take some of your money, save it, take some of your money, reinvest it in your business, aka your art supplies in this case, learning stuff, and take some of your money and have fun with it. And so he figured that out at, what was he, like 11 years old? So,
But
well,
because of you,
thanks. Yeah.
I mean, like you probably played it
But,
big.
there's a million people. There's so many people that gave me good advice probably in my life, and I just didn't recognize it. So I always I'm like, hey man, it takes good people to like actually absorb it. My other nephew, not a rock star in school, but he's like super into martial arts, and he's actually like really smart, and he's figuring out, like, they figured out how to make viral TikToks and set up their e-commerce store and do ads. So there's so much stuff out there now that, yeah, it's the thing is, do something, right? Because if you sit around and you binge Netflix and you play video games 24/7 and you're partying because you're just maybe not happy for some of it. And some people enjoy partying, so to each their own too. If someone wants to make 45,000 a year and they love partying and that's really their thing, kudos to them. But just figure out what you want.
That's so awesome. I like to, I guess for me, it feels like a bad thing. But I guess as I get older, good thing as far as if I can hopefully mentor someone that's younger that's having those questions. I play the worst for me, if I could do it over again, the worst play that I could play is going through education stuff, because I ended up in high school. I actually had a class that was meant personally just for all 4 years, the same college too, right? A very indoctrinating, right?
Like
And
a
I
college
had-
prep course.
It was called
Yeah, I
Avid.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, yes. Oh
And
yeah.
I
Oh
think they
yeah.
still have it. I'm not that sure, because again, it's quite an interesting concept. Because as Derek was saying, like that's probably the time that you shouldn't be forcing someone. You should be letting them figure out, are you going to take this serious, or are you going to do something else? But so here I am. I'm like, this is what I'm doing, right? I'm just living my kid life. Second thing I did that was just horrible there, and I did that too, is I would say for hobby time, I spent at least like 60% of my time in video games. So I wasn't like, I mean, I was learning video game stuff, but that's very low chance that's going to help me in the real world at all, whether it's for a job or for
Unless you
education.
become a professional video game.
Right,
player,
right, which
but
is a common thing now for
1%.
kids. So I don't know if I have a comment on that.
I know, right? It's
Then-
hard.
And then I go to college and get like a complicated degree that maybe in engineering. That's like, why did I do this? All to figure out that like for me and my personality, people are different. That's not even a fun job for who cares if you're making like 100 grand a year, right? And so that's why I was asked over that education question too, because I'm not here to poop on people that spent their time making these awesome degrees and stuff. But I know that my advice, like as a kid gets older into their preteens into their mid-teens, is like, what do you really feel like? Like, honestly, what do you feel like you would do? Because you do want to start focusing on what that is at the time. It's not, you don't need to have it figured out and just because you're 18 or 21, but you probably do need to have an idea on where you're going, because most of the better entrepreneurs that I've ever met have started that when they're younger. Actually, they always say, I started selling rocks when I was
Yeah.
whatever. And now
They just have that drive.
Right.
and that's not me actually. So I'm severely crippled. I still have this. I'm like, I learned calculus. What is that?
It's
Like, what?
It's good to have a balance
that-
though too. I mean, that's actually funny because you reminded me. I did my first entrepreneurial venture, if you really ever want to call it that. I think I was 11 or 12 years old, and I lived in this town called Marysville in Washington. And it was like here's the freeway, and then there's a Native American reservation on one side of it, and then I lived right here, like railroad tracks, and there was this, you could call it a creek, I guess. And the water would go up and down. And looking back, I'm like, I don't even know what kind of water was in there, but would go down. We realized like the clay in there would dry and it would harden. And so I took a bucket and filled it up with the clay. It might have been even like 2 buckets. Now I think about it, 1 or 2 buckets, whatever. We'll call it 1. Drug it back to my apartment complex, let it dry out, started trading it, selling it to other kids. for a week straight because you could use it as chalk. I forgot that part. So when it dried out, you could use it to write on
Oh,
things.
oh,
So
oh,
for
oh.
literally like a week or two, you just saw this orange brown writing all over the apartment complex, all over the place. And by the way, I think we live in a world where you're almost like not allowed to have opinions or people take things out of context. And so you talking about, degrees, I feel like I'm allowed to shit on degrees because I have one, but I did it for a reason. I don't regret it. It was really to prove to myself I could stick something out. The experience, the people that I met, all that stuff was good. And I also know people that have MBAs or are getting MBAs and they get into the real business world and they're like, whoa, like that research study didn't tell me that I could just make viral Instagram videos, and grow my business. I thought I had, so there's just so much in business is changing so fast that I think there's a lot of your network is your net worth type of thing. So that can come out of college, but also depends on what college you go to. So kind of have to
True.
figure out what's going to work for them. And don't be afraid to quit something too, which is weird, right? Because you're like, no, keep pushing us. No, sometimes just quit shit if it's not.
You have to fail to, you know what I mean, to be able to succeed. So that's all part of it. But a lot of us are even afraid to even like put ourselves out there and possibly fail. But the more I grow up and read and try to figure things out, it's all the people are talking about. It's like you have to fail. That's the only way you're gonna figure out how to
And I just
succeed.
left
So
jujitsu before I jumped in here with you guys. And like literally, I was telling someone last week, it was like on Tuesday, I'm grappling against this college wrestler and just destroying him, right? And then on Wednesday, there's this 110-pound biologist that's like kicking my ass and I'm trying not to die.
it's got like perfect
But I
form
just,
or whatever.
I never think about it as failing or losing. Like for whatever reason, at some point, I something switched for me, probably the cold calling with advertising. Once I learned the numbers on something and go, okay, if I call 50 people, at least 3 of them are going to meet with me as long as I'm doing shit right. I only need to meet with 3 people a day to build a $250,000 income stacked over a certain. So once you get the take a bunch of shots at the basket, Michael Jordan isn't famous because he took one shot every game, that kind of thing. You can just go for it.
That's a good point. Me and Conrad were talking about that before. So you heard that like it take 10,000 hours to
Outliers. I have
become
The
a
Outliers
professional
by
or
Malcolm
something. You know what I
Gladwell.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I I can agree more with everything you said as far especially actually as far as like people being scared to shit on stuff. I think it's starting to become more popular on the internet finally, but yeah, it's definitely it's okay to question things and stuff like that when it comes to important things like your whole life career, your finances. And I think the other thing though that people are somewhat getting is I've actually it is funny because I like look like I subscribe to hustle culture, right? Because I do, but I also think there needs to be a balance of people saying you don't have to do any of these things. There's you're someone's not better than you because they're all like working 10 million hours their whole life and have $1 billion. It doesn't actually make them a
It's
better
okay
person.
that you're not like that. You know what I mean? Totally.
You should be
I'm
operating in what you
I'm
feel
super
like you should be
tempted to go
operating in,
find some
what
little
feels right.
farm and just live there for 2 years in Kentucky, and I'm like, I might just do that for the next 2 years and just turn it all off,
That'd
unplug,
be
and
so
just be like,
cool.
I'm gonna grow some friggin' potatoes for a year. I don't know if you can grow potatoes in Kentucky,
Right.
but whatever.
But
It's
do it because you can, though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
you
Like,
can
just
now.
find shit
you
that
never
you're
know.
into, like try. I mean, that goes back to I think where people start to get sad or they compare themselves is because of how they're spending their time. And there's so many ways to spend time. I played a bunch of games at certain points in my life too. I realize now I can't play them. Like I've tried to re-engage with them. And I don't know if I'm just really aggressive or something, but anytime I play them, I find that I just get like I'm very addicted. So I don't know, something happens where I know that I'm like not a nice person when I'm playing video games. But I did play like one summer, I was trying to stay out of trouble, getting into community college, like trying to figure out this new path of like homework and discipline and not being a crazy person all the time. And I played StarCraft game that you ever heard of that? I got
Yeah,
super freaking good
totally.
at that thing because I learned something from it. I learned that just like everything else, like I found these videos online and strategies and read how to get good at it, then just applied it over and over and over. And I literally got so good. I was playing on like a Korean server, ranked whatever. So
Wow.
I mean, it's anything,
Yeah.
right? So it's if you're, I could have just went on there and been like, I'm not very good at this and just sucked for a long time. But with anything you do, you can go find out how to be better, figure out what the formula is, put in the work to try that shit. So
And even easier, or not easier, but more and more tools or more availability, everything within reach, just because of technology these days. So there's no excuse if it's
pick up
something
one of
that you want
these.
to do.
Pick up one of these,
That's a
right?
good
You want
one.
to go make some money, like figure out what's in this book and go put that shit to work.
You're so right though about the numbers game. If you put in this amount, you get this amount of calls. You're bound to have this many meetings, and you should have this many sales. But it all comes down to you have to be able to put in that work and be able to focus and discipline.
Cold calling's a whole nother beast. I told Kevin that's actually why I stopped wholesaling because actually, even though I'm a chatterbox, I don't cold calling. So, and that's you have to you don't have to like it. I guess, but you have to know how it works and have to be able to like deal with it. Not only I don't like being cold called either. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and
And
so
like
I'm very bad at
rejection
it.
just
Right.
sucks too. So nobody
It
likes
builds a
rejection. So
strong character, but I think the skills that
It
you build
does.
from cold calling, I don't know, maybe I have a blind spot here, but I feel like almost any business or if you want to do anything, if you learn that one skill, like even going back to coffee, I'm not cold calling people for coffee. Most of it's done online, but I'm pretty confident that if I did it myself or went on like Upwork or Fiverr and found a VA and said, "Hey, for $10, will you get me 1,000 coffee shops with their phone number?" And I just started calling down that list. I might have 49 people tell me, "No, I don't want your coffee." And then I find that one person. I'm like, "Yes, I just made some money. All I
it's
needed
that
was a
one.
phone and a product," right? And you can do that with so
One.
much.
You hit it on the head, my man. Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for both you guys for just coming on here. So it was a good time. I really appreciate it.